Hello friends, you're with the Lonesome Gamer and I'm playing Erosion. And I find it pretty hard to say how players are doing in this game because things can change very rapidly here. I mean, player 2 has at least already 3 stones here in his river delta, which gives him 6 points, and these points are safe. Player 1 and player 4, they have big mountains, high mountains, but they can be eroded pretty fast. I'm pretty sure that player 3 is doing not that great with a pretty small mountain, but even that can change. Okay, so let's see what happens next. Okay, so player 1 is doing once again a fluvial process. He plays these meanders, discard exactly 2 rocks to move the same rock types from the river to your delta. Okay, so again, as we've seen before with player 2, this goes into the discard pile, and then he will discard, well, let's see, I guess granite and conglomerate. And then grab these 2 cards, and they then go into the river delta, face down, and that gives him now 2 points per card. And because player 2 has done that in the turn before, he's simply going to draw up to his full hand. So he's going to draw 4 cards from the decks here. Okay, so player 3 played a frost action on a mountain with 4,000 meters and more, and that allowed him to weather these 3 upper rock layers, and therefore he could play 2 drawn cards or 2 new cards here to uplift his mountain. And the last player, well, he doesn't have too many options. He plays the jelly fluxion, and will actually hill slope his own mountain. So these 3 go into the river, and is allowed to draw 3 new cards. And he's going to draw 1 here, 1 here, let me see, I guess another 1 here. And then we're going to see what we can uplift here. Okay, simply uplifted here the quartzite and the conglomerate, with the goal to become the Winston Massive maybe one day. Okay, next round. Okay, so after player 1 has simply drawn up to his hand limit again after he's done that fluvial process, player 2 has a pretty good card, the thermal expansion. And he will actually play that card here on player 1's mountain. So we can start with conglomerate, then schist, shale, granite. These can all be weathered by the thermal expansion. So that's pretty awesome. Just sandstone then shields the other cards. So 4 cards, and that allows him then to draw 4 new cards and also to uplift his mountain by 3 cards. Okay, so player 2 managed to uplift his mountain up to 5,000 meters, which is Really, really good. Although the top here is already weathered, but still very well. Now, player 3 has also a strong action here. He will play this braided card, Fluvial Process. This card exactly 3 rocks to move the same rock types from the river to your delta. So he's going to discard Schist, Basalt and Welded Tuff. Then in return take these 3 cards and move them to the delta, and that will give him 6 points. So that's definitely very strong now. Okay, so player 4 played a Rockfall and weathered to hill slope 2 rocks from player 1. And then he managed to play the Granite and also the Earthquake Fault Zone here, which allows him to ignore the draw limitations on the Weathering Process deck. At least the ones that go below 2. And now it's interesting to see that the Weathering Process deck and the Hill Slope Process deck are empty. So if now a single player should pass twice in a row, then the era ends. Otherwise, the era ends as usual if all 4 players should pass. Okay, so the problem now is that we have a draw limit here from the Fluvial Process deck of only 1, because we have an arid age right now. So that means you cannot draw more than 1 card during a turn. And therefore it's more or less impossible to uplift with the usual uplift mechanic. So now it's time for these special things here, like the Metamorphic Core Complex. You may spend your turn to uplift all Schist in your hand. So that's something he can do now. You can simply play that card. And he might uplift the Shift. I mean, he could also play the card and try to grab. Maybe that's worth more. That will give him some points. Yeah, I think he will actually do a Fluvial Process instead. Discard exactly 1 rock to move the same rock type from the river to your delta. So he places that card. Then he will discard the Basalt. Take the Basalt from the river and place it in the delta. That gives him 2 points. That's better than an additional point here for the mountain, I guess. Okay, so the player 4 has this Upwelling Mantle Plume. You may spend your turn to uplift all basalt in your hand. Now that's pretty cool, because he has 2 basalts, and that's definitely a good one. We have the Shield Volcano here. Upon uplift, unweather all rocks on your mountain. Trigger an atmosphere for every 2 rocks unweathered. Uplift this card to the top of your mountain. Okay, so basically we can now unweather this one, which is good, because if this is over, it will give me 3 more points now, and in addition I can play this card. So this Mantle Plume is really cool here. And then we can trigger, well, an atmosphere. So let me see what that might be. I got an Earthquake Fault Zone. So my draw limit of the weather deck would be 2 regardless of the atmosphere. So I think I'm going to trigger that one here, and that brings us into a Hypoxic Age again. And then I'm going to play this one too, that goes also on top of the mountain. But this time I cannot trigger an atmosphere because no rock layers were unweathered. Now that's a big mountain. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,500 meters. I think that's the record for this game now. Okay, player 1 has with a frost action weathered this high mountain of player 4, so it's not that impressive anymore. But now player 2 comes with a pretty cool action here. Again, a braided, discard exactly 3 rocks to move the same rock types from the river to your delta. So he now can throw away the shale, the schist, and the welded tuff. Grab these rock types here. And now this is just pretty amazing because he has now 12 points alone from his river delta. So that is really cool. Okay, so now we're at the point where the player is starting to pass. He could, for example, hill slope some cards into the river. But if he does so, it doesn't give him any advantage because he cannot draw any more cards from the piles. They're all empty. And it might open the opportunity for other people to do fluvial processes. So that's basically something we don't want to do. So he passes. And he only has cards for fluvial processes and cannot do one, so he also passes. So, well, he could consider doing some weathering maybe somewhere. But we have here sandstone at the top. Well, maybe here that can be weathered. Granite. So yeah, I guess I'm going to play that card here on player 3 to weather that sandstone. It's not such a big deal, but it's one less point. Okay, now actually what he does is, player 1, he plays now the crystallization. That allows him to weather 2 rocks. And he's simply hoping, although it's kind of unlikely, that if he weathers his own mountain, then this fossil here might he might be able to get that fossil, because fossiled in weathered layers give you 3 points, and that's a lot. So that would be really cool if he could do that. But if someone now manages to hill slope the mountain, well then he doesn't have anything left. But it's only 1 card, so in the end I think that was worth it, the risk here. So let's see if he can hill slope this mountain now. I mean, they definitely want to try. He's got that landslide. Half of weathered rocks to the river. That's good. He cannot play the jelly fluxion because this is only possible on very high mountains. So he plays this one. And that means that 3 rocks go to the river. And that might now give new options to other people. No way. Nothing here. So he passes a second time. He had to pass, and that means now that he can't do anything, so he has to pass, yeah. And that brings this era to an end, because that player has passed a second time in 2 consecutive turns. So he actually was able to get this fossil, which is pretty awesome for him. Okay, so we're going to play a second era because it's a 4-player game, but now we're going to count the points. Okay, so now player 1 has no unweathered rocks in his mountain, so that gives him no points. He has 3 cards in his delta, that gives him 6 points, 2 per card, and he has a fossil, so that gives him 9 points overall. Well, that's not great. Okay, player 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 unweathered cards in the mountain, and oh man, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in the delta. So that means that's 20 points for player 2. That is indeed impressive. I wonder if I can ride with this hand. Pretty bad actually. It's okay. So next player, player 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards and 3 cards in the delta, so that's 11 points. And finally player 4, and he really sucks. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in the mountain, no cards in the delta, so only 5 cards, and therefore 5 points. So, well, that's sad, because that is such a clear advantage for player 2 that I really have my doubts for player 2 down here. The cards in the delta, they were that strong, and he has a good mountain, so that's a strong combination here. So I really have my doubts that the other players might be able to stop him. But of course you never know. What's going to happen now between the eras, we're going to shuffle everything back except for these atmospheric cards. They stay the way they are. And the cards at the mountains. But the rivers, the delta, the river, the hand cards, it's all going to be shuffled again, and then we're going to see everybody gets 6 new cards. 3 from that deck, 2 from this deck, 1 from that deck. In addition, then we're gonna deal the challenge cards now for the second era, and that might bring some additional attention to this game. Okay, well, I hope to see you in the next video or on lonesomegamer.com. Bye.